check out the Patreon and gain access to all the source code. Welcome back to part 3 of the series where we will create our own hardcore mode system or system or what we want to call it. So today we'll do the whole on-player talk to hardcore NPC and actually do a lot of check-in to see which option they selected. So let's do that now. The first thing we want to do is that, well, when you talk to the NPC, what we want to do is that we want to send a new menu, a custom gossip menu to the player. So the first thing we want to do, as always, is local GUID, just to handle the GUID instead of having to write the full function. So GUID get GUID load, like this. Next, we want to check if the player is even in the table, because if they are not in the table, we want them to be able to actually select to be a hardcore player. Otherwise, a hardcore player could keep pressing just to become hardcore. So we want to do that here. So if hardcore players, and then we want to the index, that's UID equals nil, then int. So if the player is not in the list already, we will let them get the correct menu for selecting to be hardcore. Otherwise, we will make sure they get the you're already in hardcore mode. So let's just focus on if they are not already hardcore. So that would be player send gossip menu add item. So the send gossip menu add item here is that we add a new item to the gossip menu. So that would be free. This is the icon. I can't remember what free is, but I don't think for me, I just played around with the numbers till I found what I would want it to be. So like this, comma, and then we want to say, I want to become a hardcore character. So I don't know why I keep doing that. And then comma 1, comma 2. Oh, no, not 2, 1. So the 2, why I wrote 2 here was because that's for the next option. This means like what part of it should be. Since I want to become a hardcore character at the top of the menu, well, of course we want to have it at 1. Let's do the next one, and it's basically the same. So let's just do Control D to copy the whole line, change the 1 here on the next line to 2, change this text we wanted to say to something else, and that would be no thank you, I have a life, like that. And we want the icon to be something different, so 4. That's again just IDs for the different menu selection things. Next, we want to send this to the player. So that would say send player gossip menu or gossip send menu. And here we want to send the and comma object. So the object is the player, the object is the NPC we are talking to. So now that's done. But again, as I said before, we still want them to actually be able to have the message where or maybe we would actually rather do a simple one, and instead of blocking the whole NPC from not being able to take the quest, we want to just make like a thing at the top saying that, hey, you are already in hardcore mode. So let's do that. So let's write else So that means if the player is already in the list at this index, which is the UID, then we just want to send as some kind of message. So we will write player send area trigger message. That's the message that's at the top of the screen. So here, and we want to say you are already you're already in hardcore mode, like this. Yeah, and then we want to say player gossip complete, like this. Okay, so before I continue here, just making sure I spelled it correctly. I did. So before I continue, I will explain what all of this does. And of course, we just want to do a return. So what we are doing here, first we just store the UID of the player in here. Easy access. Next we do is that we say if hardcore player's UID, so if there is any hardcore player at this location in the table, and then we check, is it nil? So that means if there is nothing inside the table at that index, then we want to send all of this gossip menu to the player about wanting to become a hardcore character or say no and say they have a lie. And then we send it to the player. Otherwise, we do a else statement and we do send area trigger message, and we say we are already in hardcore mode, and we do a gossip complete. And gossip complete is important because then you're not locked to a gossip with them. So that's all. Next thing we want to do is that we now want to do something about when they select one of these options, because we still don't have anything. We are not doing anything when we are actually like, what if they select I want to become a hardcore character? Well, we are still not doing anything with the selection option. So let's go back or go down and start doing that. So what we want to do here is that first off, we want to select, or not select, but we want to make sure that if the int ID is 1, so that's this one. So if that's 1, well, then we want to give them, then we want to do a check to see, okay, is this player still level 1? Is the player still at 0 XP? Of course, you don't need to do this, but that's normally how a hardcore system is. You can't level up in normal and then just switch to hardcore. So what we want to do here is that we say if int ID equals 1, then so if the ID, so when you click this automatically sends to this function because of the event that we selected something with ID 1. So what we now do is that, hey, okay, the player selected that I want to become a hardcore character. Okay, so the thing we could do here is that we can split it up into its own function and do some calculations, but we can also just do it all here. So let's just do that for ease of user, and it's just easier to write and we don't need another function. So the way we can do that is that we want to let's think of like the way we would do this. We want to first check the hardcore players, or check the hardcore players. So the first thing we can do is that we can say if and add them here. So first thing we want to do is that we want to check if the player is level 1. So that would be player get level equals 1. Okay, that's the first one. So now we are checking, okay, the player's 1 and player get XP. I think it's that way. The player get XP? Well, we need to compare it and check that the player has like 0 XP. And so we want to say get XP is 0. So the way this works is that we have two conditions that need to be met before we go in here. So the first condition is, okay, is the player level 1? Okay, yeah, it is. Next condition is asking, okay, is the player at level 0 or at 0 in XP? So let's say the player is level 1, but they killed them up and they have 50 XP. Then it will never go in here because the player didn't fulfill the other condition saying 0. So players level 1, get XP, well, should be 0. If not, too bad, you're not gonna go in and get the hardcore status. So since the player is level 1 and they have 0 XP, we will be able to add them into the hardcore mode. So the way you would do this is basically just do a hardcore players, and in here you write, oh yeah, you know what, let's just keep a little function up here. UID as always equals player get low UID low, like that. Then here UID, and we set it equals to the table. And the next thing we want to do, since we always know that for a player to select a gossip option, well, you need to be alive, so we know the player is already alive. So the way we want to do this now is that we will, of course, do a simple, what is it called? A simple thing where we set the alive to be 1 because they are alive. So alive equals 1. And that's all we actually need to do here. Well, that's all we need to do for the lure part, but we also need to add the player to the database. And for us to add the player to the database, we'll need to do a simple execute for sending the player into the database. So give me just 2 seconds here and I will think about, okay, here. Okay, now I know how to do it. I just need to look at my notes on the other screen so I can make a better video basically and explain everything. So we want to add the player into the database. Well, the first thing we want to do is that we want to insert the player into the database. Or that's the only thing we want to do. So jar db execute this time. Execute is when you want to add something into the database. And I even think, yeah, execute for updating is also the one. So here we want to do the other SQL string. Well, double quotes price, insert all uppercase into uppercase 2 and space. And between here, 2 dots again. And then we want a hardcore database table. Space again, 2 double quotes. Space again here. Write where in uppercase. And then we want to, outside the double quotes, 2 dots again. And as before, GUID column. Oh, column, sorry. And then again. Or actually, the way we want to do this is that at the where we want to do a single, can't remember what these are called, but a single quote, yeah. Single quote here before we continue. So double quotes and a single quote, and then dot dot here. And inside this one, we do a single quote again. The reason we need to do this is because we need to not inject, but put into this column GUID column. So we need to encapsulate in single quotes. The next thing we do is that inside the quote still, we space equals space, and then outside the quotes double dots, and then we write GUID because we want to add it with the GUID. And let's say inside the database here, let's say we didn't do this has died. You know what? Let's just change this to has is alive instead. Makes so much more sense. Is alive is 1, yeah. So let's keep it at that. Is alive. Just making it much more simple. Is alive. Well, so now if it's alive, as it's set to 1 all the time, well, that means that we don't need to send that here because we already know the player is alive. And it's just also much easier for when we write it here to like keep track. But let's change this to is alive, just making it easier for ourselves. And this is why I like, so let's see, is alive like this. This is the reason I like to store them like this, because if you just do this as so, you only need to change like this one because that matches your database. So you don't need to like go into here and then let's say we had it here, has died example. You don't need to go into the string and change it, but it already know based on the argument or the variable, sorry. So here, well, we are alive. Let's actually just say is alive. You don't need to do this, but I suggest doing it just because I was a little dumb when I wrote this first. So is alive, both places. So the player is alive, is 1, of course, we are alive. Next thing we want to do is that we have inserted the player into the database now. So we are basically done with what happens when you select the I want to become a hardcore character. So the next thing we want to do now is that we want to make sure that if we are not this, so again, if we are not level 1 or we are level 1 and the XP is not 0, so if we don't fulfill these 2 conditions, we want to say an else statement and say player, not uppercase, player, colon, send area trigger message. Here we want to say you are not level 1 with 0 XP. Or let's say something else. You are not I gotta spell eligible for hardcore mode. Like this. So now we say this if the player does not fulfill the 2 conditions. Outside of this if statement for if the int ID is 1, we would do if int ID equals 2, so that means we are saying no. Then and down here like this. Well, we want to do something here, or you don't even need to do something here besides saying gossip complete, or we actually also need to do that here, but let's just real quick fix this down here. Well, just to tease the player a bit, I will say player colon send area message, and in here I will say chicken like this, and then we will send a player gossip complete like this. And in here, if it's 1, no matter if you complete the the two conditions, if you fulfill them, gets added or not. We'll just always do a player gossip complete. Because if we don't need those, sorry, I'm just so used to other languages where you need those. If you don't send this gossip complete, your character will be stuck in a gossip menu. That's basically all there is to it. So now let's actually test this. So I just saw that I actually messed up a bit when explaining all of the character execute. I'm sorry about that. So we are not gonna do the where. Makes kind of sense why we're not doing that. I don't know what I was thinking and why we wrote where. So let's just fix that. So instead of where, we want to insert into the database table, and then we want the IDs. So that would be like, or not the IDs, the columns. So you would do like this, and then inside here you can see we have the UID column, which is just the name we are getting we're putting in here. Then we do like this instead. And now what we want to do is that let's remove this so it's not gonna annoy anyone or make people confused. So now we have it all added in here. Then we go here, write values, spell values like this, space again, and then we do the same. And what we want to do now is that we will go here, dot UID dot colon again, or double quotes, and we are basically done now. So now we will be able to get in and test it. And as you can see, I failed totally when I tested this. That's why. Not returns. God damn. Reload Eluna. Let's now quit. Of course it will give us, no, it didn't give us an error. Okay, good. So let's log in. Let's talk to him. Okay, what did I now mess up? So you see here, attempt to call method send gossip menu add item and nil value. Well, what did I now again mess up? So I might have spelled it incorrectly. I actually don't know. Let's see. That's great. Now you guys can see how to troubleshoot all of this. So let's just see if I actually spelled it incorrectly or something. Oh my god, it's because I'm saying send gossip menu item. My bad, it's gossip menu add item, not send. Cool, now that's done. Let's again head in, reload, and now let's head out, head in game again, talk with him, and now you can see we get the menu. So let's say I want to become a hardcore character. Let's click on it. Let's see if that worked. Well, nothing, like it didn't say any errors, so that's a great sign. Let's log out. And we just removed this player from hardcore list. So that means it worked. Because if we go in here and we play F5, boom, we are finally in here. So this all worked now. I'm sorry for the mess ups. I'm only human, so. But yeah, that's all for part 3 today. I will see you in part 4. See you next time.